All right, guys, this is a big topic that we just need to figure out today. If you're a clinician, if you're a clinic owner, this is super important, especially if you have a team or you're looking to set up a team. This will buy back so much of your time. And the biggest problem I find in the industry that we are part of, and by the way, if you're new to the channel, my name's Stefan. I have a company called Practice Speak. We consult for clinics and we try to get them to level up because we believe that clinics should be set to a high standard to help patients, to also help the owner to have some more freedom, some more impact, some more choice. However, this is what we find. There's a lot of clinic owners that are busy but stuck, or they just don't even know what delegation looks like. So in this video, I want to share with you a hybrid of what I came up with from one of Alex Hormozzi's playbooks, which is, well, how do we, and by the way, this will solve so many problems. So if you stay until the end, it should make perfect sense as to what does that look like for my life, for my practice. But we call it the 3Ds framework. And this, the reason why I say it's a framework is it can be used in so many things. I mean, think about what is your biggest asset right now in your practice. You're probably thinking it's my patients, or it's care plans, or it's memberships. It's not. It's this. And this thing keeps ticking. It's your time. And the reason why I say that's important is because as you scale, as you go, let's imagine this is a practice and this is day 0 and this is year 10 and this is like value here. What happens is you tend to like get busier and busier and your value increases. But actually what happens is you are just running out of things you can do, because what you have to do is wear, this is a hat by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, you have to wear one hat for the clinician, you need to wear another hat, this is terrible, for the manager. So you need to manage the place, you need to manage the people's diaries, you need to manage people's expectations, you have to deliver the service, you have to think about marketing, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So what I would suggest is, well, instead of thinking about my time as each day equals 24 hours in a day, why can't we say that one day equals 100 hours a day? And that's where the 3D framework will help you. Now, I have helped numerous clinics think about this in this manner. So as a clinic owner, you tend to start, and your most important job, let's say this is point number 1, is to provide the service. Provide service. That service could be chiropractic, it could be physiotherapy, it could be massage. It doesn't really matter what the service is. Sorry guys, I just realized you can't see here. Job number 1 is provide the service. Provide service. Then your job number 2 might be, well, I need to now maintain the good level of service. Maintain. Job number 3 might be referrals. I need to think, well, okay, if I have this amazing service and we keep getting results, how do I make sure that every client that comes through the door has passed on their knowledge that they've learned from us about what chiropractic is, how the body works, and so on and so forth. So what you find is you start to have then another job, and then I have to book people, then I have to take payments, then I have to schedule people, and you just end up actually not being able to do anything. And this is what we call the founder's dilemma. It's like, what business am I trying to build? And if you haven't watched that video on the founder's dilemma, you better be building the business that is right for you. So go back and watch that. But more importantly, how do we solve this problem? Let's assume that you got yourself to 50 visits a week, 100 visits a week. One of our clients opened 4 or 5 months ago. He's on 150 visits a week this week, which is amazing. But there was only so much he could deliver before the whole thing started to collapse. It's not collapsed yet. Why? Because we decided to do our first hire. And the first logical hire for him was a chiropractic assistant. Now, why would that be helpful? Because he has to schedule people, because he has to take payments, because he has to do the cancellations, send the SMSs, and so on and so forth. These are just tasks that eat away from his daily time. Therefore, we are buying back his time. We're investing in the machine in order for the CA to be able to do those tasks that can be very easily done by someone who doesn't deliver the product, which, if you remember, was one of the top priorities. You provide a service. Only you can provide the service at this point, in case you then start to leverage your time in different ways and you hire. But how would I hire a CA if I don't have any systems in place? Because what you end up doing is teaching the CA, and then they require more of your time. So now you've hired a CA, but without systems, automation procedures, or the 3D framework, you just end up managing them, managing you, and managing patients. And that's where a lot of people find it difficult. And I hear all this stuff online now. People shouldn't have a business, or if you're having a business, you shouldn't scale. You should just have a highly profitable practice, just working yourself. You're the boss. Yeah, but what happens if the client that I was just talking about has an injury and they can't work for 6 weeks? Or touch wood, like, I don't know, they twist their ankle playing football, they broke a bone, or they just want to take a family like week off or 2 weeks off. They don't really have a practice that is built to provide the service. They have a job that relies on them. So I don't think there's right or wrong ways of doing stuff. There's just more optimal ways of doing stuff and the right thing for you. And that's why we're here. And this is where the 3D framework comes in. Now, Alex Hormozi's got it in a slightly different way. I've actually changed it and adopted it for chiropractic, and it works better for us. And it's what I've done. I just didn't realize I was doing this. But step one, you guys have to excuse me. My spelling is terrible. My dyslexia is showing up. Step one. Let's call this D1. D1 equals to the process of documentation. This is one of the biggest skills people learn when they come and join the program, because what we do is we talk about how do we create documentation in the business, which sounds so boring. But what if I told you that this one client that just is making 20, 30K a month now after opening this practice 5-6 months, 150 visits a week, seamlessly, by the way, spent 6 to 12 months before he opened the practice inside Practice Peak, which is our private community, people who haven't had the practice or haven't got a practice to come in. But with this person, I knew that he's invested in coaching, he's invested in his time. So what we could do is we can kind of skip the queue, and we did that. That's not the norm, by the way. It's a highly vetted private network for clinic owners. And when this particular gentleman joined, the first few months he was just documenting, and he was creating things like standard operating procedures. These are SOPs. He was creating protocols. He was borrowing documents from us and policies that we've put in place, documents. And what he was basically doing is he was saying, hey, I'm actually 100% ready to hire someone as soon as I have my practice and as soon as I have these documentation procedures. An SOP for a CA might be, and by the way, we shared like a whole manual with him on how our CAs answer the phone. What do they say? How do they input the stuff in the software? How do they close a shift? How do they do the cashing in? How do they do the objection handling? If a patient comes in and whatever, they're not happy or they want to cancel their appointments on the phone, what do we say if they say this versus that? This stuff takes years to actually develop, because what we do is we actually run it in our practice. I get passionate about this because there's so many gurus that teach stuff but don't have a practice, and therefore, like, well, it's different when you have skin in the game and you have to like speak to the girls in reception when you notice that they didn't follow the script, as opposed to just, hey, here is a script and this works, I read it in the textbook. So you have to be very mindful of advice, and you have to be mindful of advice that works for you. Even with me, question everything I say, because it might not be right for your current journey. I always say, like, model the step of the journey that you're currently looking to achieve good results in, rather than the peak, which is Stefan's got a 7-figure practice with a team of close to 20 people and he's removed himself from the business. Well, that's taken years to get to this level, and no one really talks about that. But anyways, back to this video. So document. An SOP for a CA might be, how do I open the shift? Open the shift. Another SOP might be script for cancellations. That's an awesome cancellations. Now, unless you have it documented, you can't really get to the next level, because the 3Ds work in, and I'll talk about this later on in the video, they have to be followed in the right sequence in order for the whole system to work better, for you to be able to have one day a practice that doesn't 100% rely on you, your time, your energy, your effort. And that's how it starts. It starts with documentation. I'm going to make another whole YouTube video on creating my SOPs. So you guys have to keep me accountable to this, but there is a certain way that if I'm building an SOP, I can then create huge amount of value in step 2 and in step 3 and in step 4 from just having the right SOP to make SOPs. And when I say value, I mean I free up a lot more of my time, because Step 2, so imagine this is step 1. So now we've got some few SOPs. You can do the same thing, by the way, if you're hiring your first associate, for example, or your first manager. This documentation, back in the days, used to take years and years and years and years to have a full, like, what do they used to call it even? Like a work manual handling book, or work manual book, or employees manual, or employees handbook. All these, like, you used to pay lawyers and solicitors to build these for you, HR. Now we can use AI and we can use technology that I will talk about in a different video, just to make that for you and to have it recorded so it's documented. Because once I've documented, and let's assume that we have the same example as your first CA hire, the second super important step is to demonstrate. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Terrible spelling, sorry guys. Now, if I want to demonstrate, I might be very clever about this. This is where the magic comes in, okay? So step 1, we need to document a specific procedure or process. Think about buying back your time. What would someone need to have in order for them to be able to take action on something? Whether it's closing a shift or opening a shift, whether it's adjusting a patient, whether it's doing day 1, whether it's doing day 2, whether it's taking exercise in a certain manner. Demonstrate means that I show the person, based on this document, what success looks like, what good or what great looks like. This is how I was able to remove myself from the practice, and knowing that there are certain standards that are met regardless if I'm in clinic or if I'm not in clinic. Super important. And what I mean by that, so what I demonstrate, let's say we're using an example of your first associate. Okay? So you've got this clinician come in here in your practice, they're all happy and smiley, they think everything is going well, and then you just crush their beliefs in week 1, week 2 of training. Because what you need to do is, once you've documented let's say we have a day 1 script, okay? Whether you believed in scripts or not, it doesn't matter. They work, so it doesn't matter what you think. Especially, let's say we're talking about a new associate. Day 1 script. You've been documenting this, you've been working on yourself, you've based on your knowledge and experience and what works well for patients or not, you've had this documentation. Let's say it's a piece of paper, let's say it lives on your Google Drive, let's say it's whatever, some digital format. Then a new associate comes in. Week 1, I spent 5 days a week, for 2 weeks straight, just on day 1 and just on day 2. Now you might think, but how can you do so much on, I don't know, how to take history, how to do medical and physical examination, how to explain the scans, there's so much. In fact, I'm actually going to change that to probably 6 weeks in the future, because I understand that this is the bread and butter of if I go all the way back here, provide great service. That was your job. That was your entire positioning in the marketplace. We're chiropractors. We help you get better results faster with the best intentions, but that needs to be documented and demonstrated in order for someone to know what that even looks like. So what I'll do is then I'll demonstrate that. You can be really clever in this step, and you can actually combine what we call a hybrid model between step 1 and step 2. And that might look like this. Stay with me because this is important. So you have an associate, you're training, or a CA, it doesn't matter, and you're training them on a particular procedure or process. And let's assume that that is a new patient consult, and that's what you're training them on, okay? If you're clever, what you could do is you can, and this is what we teach inside the community, by the way, because what we find is when people join, they think they have one problem. We solve that issue, they have an amazing practice, they start to get busy, and the only problem they then have is, I might have to start hiring people because I just don't have any time in my diary anymore because I'm fully optimized. That's a clever strategy. Instead of hiring too early, or not hiring at all, or not streamlining your processes, or not scaling. And then you kind of just go, well, workshop used to work 10 years ago, so I'm not going to change. Things are evolving. Times are changing. You better stay current, but some principles stay the same, and that's what we teach. We call them evergreen principles. So going back to this, let's say we're teaching a new patient consult. I've got it documented, so I've come up with my scripts, I've come up with how to communicate that with the patient. Now it's time to demonstrate. So what that looks like, we could do it in a form of role play. I want them to model success, remember. I want them to do great. So I'm going to show them, with my ego, what great looks like. And I used to convert at 90% at day 2. People committing to a care plan. So I know that what my recipe worked. If you don't have your stats, or your 25% of people say yes and 75% of people say no, you better go and work on yourself because you're currently the product. But if you've nailed that first part and now it's time to demonstrate it, I might do a role play where I'm the doctor, they're the patient, and I'm recording it from the side with a camera so we can hear and we can see body language, tonality of the voice, how intentional we are with the words we use, the pauses we use, the speed that I speak to. These are super important things. And my argument is this: anything is trainable and teachable. It just depends on how good you are at implementing it, how good you are at keeping them accountable, and how worth it is for your time. How, right now, for me, I'm not saying I'm better than people. I'm just saying that my time is better used to train an associate than to train a CA. So I've trained my manager to train the CAs, and that's how we leverage time. And that's how we build a practice, by the way. You need to have a framework that works and needs to be implemented every single time. So we document, we demonstrate what success looks like. We might even, that might be step one of the role play, I do it to them. They can see, and that's saved on Google Drive, that's saved somewhere where they can listen to it in the car, when they can watch it. But then we swap. So we do the swap where I become the patient. So I'm the patient and they, the doctor. And then what we do is we do instant feedback. So initially, let's call it 1.5, is I stop them and say, no, stop, Dr. John, that was terrible. Instead of saying a little bit, we're just going to check your spine, there's a little bit of a curvature here, we say, no, stop that. There is a curvature in your spine. It's not just a little bit of pain, there is pain that is affecting your sleep. Don't undermine how patients are feeling, because clearly there's bad enough for them to see you. Therefore, we'll call it filler words like just a little bit. Let's just see how these actually make everything you do a lot less valuable, and it makes the patient feel like, well, okay, that's fine. It's pretty casual here. And because casualty creates people dropping off and people not completing a plan and people not getting better and people not preventing it from happening again. So that might be step 1.2, where I've demonstrated. Now they're doing it to me, but I'm stopping and I'm giving them feedback. And step 2.0 might be they do the whole day one without any feedback. That can take an hour, 45 minutes, depending on what your clinic practice is like. And then I give them feedback, and then they go back and practice. But at least now I know that I've documented things, I've demonstrated them, because the final step, which is where people get so excited because it's the sexiest step, but it does not work unless you implement step 1 and step 2. So D3, so the third D, is to duplicate. And what I mean by that is you need to create a system of accountability whereby you can duplicate yourself, you can clone yourself, and you can remove yourself from the process, so the process no longer requires you. And now you can see how building a practice is super difficult, but yet very simple if you have the right network of people around you telling you what to do. Half the times with the coaching, I tell people what not to do. But this duplicate stage of the process is super exciting, because it basically means, let's assume you hired your first clinician, you have documented and demonstrated how to do a day 1, how to do a day 2, how to do a day 3, how to do a progress check, how to do a re-exam, how to do table talk, and that's taken you weeks and weeks and weeks. Because it's been documented and demonstrated and it's saved somewhere on Google Drive or whatever platform you use, I can duplicate it by saying, now I can tell my clinic manager to have one-on-one meeting with the chiro once a month or once a quarter to make sure that that standard that we set based on what success looks like, it's met. Make sure that I can have a KPI tracker, so on a weekly basis I can see the pulse of the clinic. Are we overperforming? Are we underperforming? Are we plateauing? I can only make these decisions if I've created the whole protocol before I duplicate myself, before I duplicate the process and remove myself from the business. So some of you might think, well, that sounds too complicated. It really isn't. And I would argue that your business will be so much more complicated if these things are missing or you just are inconsistent in what you do. And what that actually does is it creates inconsistency of care, which is why I get really passionate about Practice Peak and how one day we're going to have every single clinic owner in the UK would have had some exposure to my program and our content step up. We need to level up the way we practice, and not necessarily the adjustment or the philosophy. That stuff has been working for years and years and years. It's the way how intentional we are about setting up a true highly performing practice that has the highest standard of care consistently delivered to every single patient that comes through your door. And I don't believe we're there yet. And I think we've got a lot of work to do. One thing I would suggest is, if you have watched this video and if you did find it helpful, you can skip the queue and you can just jump on a call with me and we can figure out, is it something that we can help with or not? We have an amazing private community of clinic owners that we work with, and business is lonely. So every single month, every single week, in fact, we catch up twice a year. We meet in person on some really cool events. Last month we did Portugal, and that was super cool. We surfed together, we ate together, we drank together, we laughed together. We also bitched about how difficult business is and how the challenges are in the business, but also what are the solutions. So that's if you want to jump the queue. And if not, I have 4 clinics now that have said, Stefan, you literally took me from 0 to 30K a month from just consuming your content on YouTube. Now, these guys are very, very good at implementation. They didn't need accountability and they didn't need strategy. And now they're joining the program because they want to take it to a new level. But the offer is there. There's free stuff. Go and use it. There's also the paid stuff that when you're serious, we take to the next level. I would love to welcome you in because it's just not the right fit for them and for us. But thank you for watching, guys. I've got nothing else to say apart from this framework is one of the most valuable frameworks we've ever designed, created intentionally for our practices. And now we teach it across close to 50 plus practices here in the UK as well. Until next time. Bye-bye.